Most psalms have some type of mountain, something to be overcome that we do by faith and by prayer. And if we look at the psalms, we can see honest problems that people have. And maybe we don't have that particular problem at the moment, but we can apply the principles that come from it. Well, today we're going to look at Psalm 4, and we're looking at when problems hem us in. Okay, when we have problems and they sort of hem us in, control us, and our circumstances can overwhelm us. We specifically in Psalm 4, it's dealing with the attacks of people through slander, gossip, politics, put down and tearing down. And thankfully, you know, I'm grateful that that there hasn't been a lot of this. There has been times when people have done this, in my life, but far and wide, there's more of a positive contact of people where they've encouraged me. But there's been the other as well. But whatever the problem is, it's overwhelming us and surrounding us, and it's tightening us, and we are hemmed in. And from our perspective, when this happens, we don't see many options. We just see the overwhelming problem, and it's the problem is controlling us, and we're definitely not controlling the problem, and we got our backs against the wall. Now, in David's world, what he had was his son was rebelling against him, and he had ambushed David, and he basically had forces in play where David was under attack. And the only way that David had safety was to get out of Jerusalem and go to a safe spot where he could regroup. Okay, the fact that his son was doing this to him, he was very distressed. He's older here, and it's life is different as we age and get older, and our resilience to bounce back often is challenged. So the mountain that he's facing is he doesn't want people. He doesn't, he feels fenced in and surrounded, and the only way he can get out is a breakthrough. And he's got people around him that are able to do this with him, but it's going to take a miracle to get him out. And so we start, looking at it. For the director of music with string instruments, a Psalm of David. Answer me when I call to you, my righteous God. Okay, so as the person is climbing up this mountain to overcome this problem of being hemmed in, his first step is to pray, and he wants God to answer. He wants to have God answer him. Now he knows that God is righteous, and he also knows that he's made mistakes and sin, and those things have actually led to the situation that he's in. And so, he's asking, the path that he's taking, be gracious to me, have mercy on me, hear my prayer, okay? And give me relief in my distress. I'm the word here is I'm in a tight spot. I feel hemmed in. One translation says that, okay? I feel hemmed in. I'm in a narrow place, and I need a wide place, a wider place of safety. Here, I'm under attack, and it's very dangerous. And so he's got a real serious problem that you could, I'm saying, was a mountain to him, whether he lived or died. It's a mountain. And so I built these mountains in the Psalms from an idea that Jesus gave in Matthew 21:21. Jesus replied, I tell you the truth, if you have faith and do not doubt, not only can you do what was done to the fig tree, which he destroyed as a way of illustration to show a dead faith, but also you can say to the mountain, go throw yourself into the sea and it will be done. If you believe, whatever you receive in prayer, whatever you ask for in prayer. Okay? And so the mountain that he's talking about is really the problem that we face in prayer. All right, that's really what he's talking about. And so I created a mountain, and you can see it. And you can do this with any psalm you like. Now remember, some psalms have a lot more verses in it, so you may have to put the key ideas of what you want on this to demonstrate the process of what the person's going through. And there's a problem at the bottom, at the base of the mountain, and there is a place where the psalmist wants to be at the top. And when we look off to the right, we see, in retrospect, as we look back, we see how God answered our prayer. But as we look on the left, we're going through the problem by faith. And, we may not be sure. We may have real concerns whether or not God even hears us. We may have a complaint. We may have a problem, and that's said for. And so what I like to do when I look at these Psalms is look at what the psalmist was saying and understand what they were going through. Remember now, they don't have the New Testament. They don't have the rest of the Old Testament. They didn't have everything that we have as far as our understanding of God. But it is interesting that their problems are our problems, and we have similar problems that they have. And despite our added knowledge and teaching, we still go through these, Lord, hear my prayer, we're uncertain of what's going to happen. It could be good or bad. And Lord, whatever it is, health, relationships, accidents, problems, they can be overwhelming, and at the time they can dominate. And the answers that God gives, he does it in each psalm. It gives us one more building block in our thinking about how God works in our life. But we know from experience that we have to go through bad times. We can't avoid them. It may be a surgery. It may be a time of sickness. This year we've gone through the effect of COVID, and people have gone through it. And you know, many people, the vast majority of people who have gone through COVID have survived. Yet, we know people maybe in our life, uh, maybe close to us, who didn't go through it. You know, they didn't go through it, and they died. COVID has taken a lot of people, and so I'm sure that people who have had that experience, okay, they may feel that you know disheartened. But when we go to prayer, what I'm trying to show you from the Psalms is when we look back, we will see how the Lord was with us. How he answered our prayer, how we went through these things and he was with us. We know that we're not all going to live on this life forever, that there's a time when we will get sick and we will ourselves face death. And we may have loved ones that are concerned about us, and they will grieve that we're gone. But this is part of life, and the bigger picture of our life has to cover the idea of eternity, because our temporary life here on earth, yes, science has helped us live longer, but science hasn't and won't stop death. These bodies, they do wear out. And so, you can look back in the last 100 years, and we've extended life by, an average life from 38 to 40 to 70, 75, here in the United States, anywhere from 78 years old to 74 years old, we've extended life. And a lot of that's done by medicine, okay? Some of it's done by lifestyle changes, but a lot of it has been the medicine and the treatments that we received. And I pray that they might be able to find treatments for COVID that are even better, because I think we're going to go through another virus, whether it's in my lifetime or in our children's lifetime. I think it's going to happen again. And are we learning how to treat it as we go through it? So it's more than the vaccine, but I'm thankful for the vaccine. I really am. And if you haven't gotten your vaccine, I pray that you would consider it. I don't know what reasons are against the vaccine that people may have, but I think taking the vaccine gives you a better chance of beating this and not getting so sick with it. But we know, like our flu shots, some years are better than others, but it's just something that helps us. Not the perfect answer, but it's a good thing. Okay, and so he's praying. Okay, he's praying. Now, when he looks at verse 4 and 5, I got that there in the middle of my mountain. Tremble and be agitated, angry, and do not sin. Meditate on your heart on your bed, and be still. Offer sacrifices of righteousness and put your trust in the Lord. Now, this is part of the answer that God has. When we have a problem where our life is threatened, like here with David, we may have to fight back. God has given us an emotion here. One is to flee. Boy, if we can flee, that's great. Or to fight. Okay? And sometimes we need that anger. So it's either trembling or being agitated. Okay, in verse 4. All right. But we're not to sin. By that I mean emotions can help us to get through a bad situation. The adrenaline can be used to give us the energy that we need to face the attack. But if we hang on to that anger, then we can sin. We can start planning our whole life around anger and, do things that are wrong. So I believe anger is a God-given energy for a specific problem and task. But once we've survived that, we need to let it go. We need to let it go. There may be a need for justice. There may be a need for, the evil that was done against us to be brought to court and get justice. But we have to let it go, because anger spreads like a fire, and all of a sudden it can be there in every part of our life, and we can be abusive and hurtful and out of control. So that's partly what he's saying here. Do not sin. Now meditate within your heart on your bed and be still. David's wanting room to grow, but the Lord's letting him know here that that could happen, that growth, if you draw back here and pray and talk to me and think about the situation. Ideas will come, and the problem will start having solutions. And then, of course, take care of your relationship with the Lord. So when you're on the mountain, Paul said that if you had the ability to move mountains, but you don't have love, you don't have anything. It's nothing. So that's in 1 Corinthians 13, verse 2. Okay, if you would like to look at that. So, we need to get right with God. We need to get right with our relationships, and then we need to put our trust in the Lord. So we have the immediate problem where we have to flee or fight, but then we have the whole problem of reconciliation and relationship and love that we have to deal with. And we're asking God to work through those areas with us. And, we can only do what we can do. I read this week, somebody was writing on Facebook, and they wrote the idea that we have to learn to accept what we cannot change. That's true. There's a lot of things, a lot of problems I have that I can't change. And there's some problems I have, maybe where I have a little bit of opportunity to change. But there's things I have to accept. And when I do that, I'm actually giving more room in my heart for whatever problems that I can change. And, we don't want to be overwhelmed. Again, like in this psalm, hemmed in. All right. So, we're getting sustained by the Lord, that He will hear us when we call, and the Lord lift up your countenance upon us. And as we go through this problem, we begin to see how the Lord works. In verse 1, it tells us, "You have relieved me in my distress." Now that's a definite answer to prayer. So we look back and we see how God has relieved us in our distress. Verse 7, "You have put gladness in my heart, more than the season that their grain and wine increase." So the Lord has sustained David. The Lord has given him substance to strengthen his body and to help him. He's also been able to sleep, although he's looking forward to it here. "I will both lie down in peace and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety." Okay. And, we see how God works. Okay, I'm looking at some of my notes here, thinking what I need to share with you maybe that could be helpful. When we look at verse 3, "Know that the Lord has set apart his faithful servant for himself. The Lord hears when I call to him." In our problem that we're praying about here, or your problem that you're praying about, we are met with God's unconditional love. Okay? The Lord has set apart his faithful servant for himself. And the Lord hears. Okay? Now, whether or not we've been faithful or not, that's a good question. But if we haven't been that faithful, then we can get that right with God. If we confess our sins, he's faithful and just to forgive us of our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. So we can get right with him, and we can set a pace for ourselves where we begin to be faithful. Faithful is a very strong thing that God would love in our life. Okay, faithfulness is very important. A life of faithfulness is huge, and but that certainly is there. Now, when we take our trust to the Lord, this word trust is used 152 times, and verse 5, trust in the Lord. Sometimes it can be take refuge. David needed that here, I think. Sometimes it's lean on. Lean on. Lord, I'm leaning on you because I don't have much strength. Lean on. Trust. Sometimes we even we take our burden and roll it on the Lord, okay, and give it to Him. Give God the things that you can't change, okay? To stay upon might be another way of putting trust. Trust and believe in the New Testament are similar thoughts, and it's very important, okay? Now, we have talked about, or I have mentioned anyway, where in verse 5, or verse 8, in peace I will lie down and sleep. You alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. Compare that to verse 5 of chapter 3, or Psalm 3. I will lie down and sleep. I awake again because the Lord sustains me. Now he's asking here in Psalm 4, notice here in verse 7, I'm going to go back to verse 6. Many, Lord, are asking, who will bring us to prosperity? Let your light shine upon us. Fill my heart with joy when their grain and new wine abound. So he's asking the Lord to sustain him. And we need that in times of heavy trial. We need the Lord to help us sleep. We need the Lord to help us to get our nourishment, to strengthen our body. And especially in time of trial. You know, it's a great idea to have our diet right and our sleep schedule right. It can make all the difference in the world. And so when David's praying these very practical things for God to work in his life, it really helps as he moves up the mountain to where he's able even to sleep in safety. Sleep in safety. And, fill my heart with joy, that inner joy, that pleasant circumstances, that they may be different. But praise, they can both be of God. So whatever our circumstances, good or bad, we can have the feeling within that we are right with God and the Lord is with us and He's helping us. Will there be a shift to blessing? I think so. But I know ultimately, remember the eternal picture, ultimately we will be blessed. Ultimately, we will find rest. Ultimately, we will find joy and peace. Okay? Now, in this world, we may have our troubles, and we may pray, and we may be at a point where our problems hem us in. But as we pray, and as we trust, and as we walk, as we meet those dangers, we'll see how God works within us through it. Or if we see the opposite, where we don't get better, but that we go to be with the Lord, in heaven we will then see it. Okay? But most of the time, I think what David's praying about here, we can experience in this life. Okay? But we have to do it. We have to do it ourselves. No one can do it for you. You have to pray. You have to trust. You have to call on the Lord. you know, you have to look for God's blessings as He helps you. You have to use your emotions correctly to face the situation that you're facing, and then when you look back, you can see how God answered your prayer. And my prayer for you today would be that you can lie down in peace, sleep, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. Okay? So whatever the conflict, whatever the problem that you're praying about, okay, you can have that child's prayer. Now I lay me down to sleep. Oh, my soul to keep, and it can be yours. So I hope this has helped you. Okay? Keep reading the Psalms. Okay, follow me on social media, Facebook or YouTube. Also, visit our website at fbcjoliet.com. God bless.